Welcome, Digital Trailblazers. This is Leah Ray with Digital Trailblazer, and this is the Digital Trailblazer Podcast Bonus Success Path episodes. This is where we feature up-and-coming online entrepreneurs and see how they're beginning their journey and walk with them through their first steps of building and growing a very successful online business from the start. So in today's episode, we have with us Michelle Quirk. Welcome, Michelle. Super excited to have you here today and learn all about what you're doing. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and let us know what you're all about.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Michelle Quirk. I am a pediatrician and a run coach in Philadelphia. And my business is called Mindful Marathon. That's my run coaching business. And I help make running easy and fun for busy professionals.
Wow. I'm like the worst runner, but my husband is a runner. I'm a weight trainer.
That's fine. Yeah. And this won't be all about running. So it's fine. Yeah. You're welcome here.
Thank you. I was a registered nurse though. And I did work in peds for a while, inpatient peds. So I have that connection. I guess we got there. How did you go? I'm curious, your story being a pediatrician. How did this happen? Like, where did this come from? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think the story is twofold. The first thing to say is that I was not always a runner. So I was a kid who really struggled with running. And I used to look at the track team and the cross country team and think that they were made of something different than I was because they just couldn't do it. I wanted to do it, but it was always very hard for me. And so fast forward, this is about 10 years ago. I had just finished my residency and moved to a new place. I was newly married, started this brand new doctor job. And at this time, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and he passed away shortly after the diagnosis. So it was it was a bad time. It was a rough time, a lot of stressors. And I found myself standing in the ER one night talking to a patient and her family about things I talk about all the time: healthy habits, healthy nutrition, getting exercise, getting adequate sleep. And here I was having this moment, I'm talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And it was in that moment, I was like, you know what, something has to change. And I've had the running sneakers in the closet. I'm going to put them on. I'm going to lace them up tomorrow. And I'm going to go about it different this time. I'm just going to do 5 minutes around the block. If that's all it is, it's fine. And that is where I started. The next day, I went around the block 5 minutes. And then I kind of worked up from there. And so the origin of the business is really sort of the origin story of why I began running. And now I help people who were like me, who really weren't runners or who are new to the sport. And maybe, they think I don't know, I could never run a half marathon or a marathon. And then I'm living proof that yes, you can. So that's the first part of the story.
That's awesome. So I love that. So you help non-runners essentially get off the couch, make it happen, and make that transition.
Yeah. I mean, of course, now a lot of my people from when I started are now very avid, regular runners working toward, all sorts of crazy, wonderful goals. But at the beginning, a lot of people were not runners. So that's the amazing part of it.
That's cool. So how did it turn into a business? How did that transition happen?
Yeah. So this is maybe about 5-6 years ago. I ran my first marathon, and I think, I came back from that race. After I crossed the finish line, I became a running evangelist. If I can run a marathon, everyone can run a marathon. It'll change your life. And I was talking about running to everybody who would listen. And I was taking people along with me. So my husband, my mom, my mother-in-law, various family and friends. And I started writing some very rudimentary training plans, but I was taking everybody along for the ride. And at that time, I was very, very burned out in my job in medicine. I mean, that's the truth. I worked in the hospital, a lot of night shifts and holidays and the state of medicine, all of the things. I was very burned out in my clinical role. And I was actually thinking of quitting medicine entirely. And I wanted to do something else. And in my world, just by luck or whatever you want to call it, there is a colleague and friend of mine who she has a life coaching business. And she was really the first physician entrepreneur who I had
Ah,
met and known. And so watching her kind of grow her business, she was really the one who sparked this. Like she said, you know, Michelle, you love running, you're bringing all these people along
mhm.
with you. Have you thought about making this a business? And honestly, like I really hadn't. I was on a treadmill of sorts, just doing my thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and she was really the one who had me like sit back and say, huh, you're right. You know, I've I've already done a lot of things to get it started. And that's really what made it get off the ground was it was her experience and her prompting. So,
Yeah.
and it started in 2019 and here we are.
That's awesome. That would be my next question is timing. So okay, 2019. Well,
Mhm.
that's good timing though, because a lot of people suddenly had time on their hands and couldn't go to like gyms and stuff and were looking for things, and clearly running outside was
Yep,
very
it
safe
was.
to do, really good to do at that time. Was that really helpful for you, the pandemic? I mean, obviously there was a lot of bad with the pandemic. I don't want to like say that
Yeah, yeah.
there was goodness, but I'm just like, for a lot of businesses, there were silver linings to it, if
I
you will.
think when I started the business, I envisioned running with people and having local run groups, maybe. And
Yeah.
so the shift there, like I didn't have a ton of clients right at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
the pandemic hit, and it turned virtual. And I thought, I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to just pivot and do what we can. And so actually, it did help in the long run, but it wasn't what I envisioned when I started
Mhm.
it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but now I help people all over the place because it is virtual. Like I have some local clients, but I do most
Right.
of my coaching over Zoom, so it worked out great.
Yeah. I think for a lot of folks, it really forced people to just think differently and find different solutions, and ended up opening a lot more doors. I mean, think about how many more people you have the opportunity to work with now compared to if you had stuck in just the local area. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So, what are some of your biggest or proudest success moments, success stories for your clients?
I think all of the first time people, like thinking that they can't get off the couch and ever run a 5K, or then like the first time half marathoner.
Mm,
I of course think about the first time marathoners because that is just it's a huge undertaking, a huge amount of time and commitment and all of those things.
yeah.
I'll go with a recent win. I had a client who was a triathlete primarily for
Mhm.
fun,
Yeah.
not like like intensely competitive, but for fun. And she ended up kind of had some friends sort of talk her into signing up for the New York City Marathon via a charity. So she kind of committed, like has to raise a good amount of money for this
Mhm.
charity and then run the New York City Marathon and all of the ups and downs of training there. But she finished the marathon, and actually before she even ran the marathon, she had sent me a text saying like, by the way, don't tell anyone, but like I signed up for the Chicago Marathon lottery. And this is a person who said like, I think I'm one and done and I'm never going to do a marathon again.
That
So
is funny. That is funny.
I
So I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, and they've got Grandma's Marathon, and it's a big deal. And I just never saw the draw because it's
never.
like really cold. It's always guaranteed to be the worst weather possible, and
Yes.
it looks miserable.
Well, in your wonderful state of Florida, there are many marathons too. You can go for a warmer option if you want.
Yes, yes. Now, yeah, here I'm sure it wouldn't be in the wintertime. That would be very good here. But up northern Minnesota, along the shores of Lake Superior, I think it's usually spring. I don't know. It's in a transition season. It's not midsummer. So, and the only time to go there safely is midsummer.
Noted.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So yeah, it's really interesting because I've been on spurts in my life of like trying to get into. I think I've run like a mile, type person
Mhm,
before
mhm.
hitting the weights or something. But my husband is definitely a runner, and I have one son he's very determined. So you can get him going on something and he'll just do it. And he's
Mhm.
been running with him since he was like
Oh,
6. And he's like, he has a husky build and he really likes to eat. So we're like, okay, running would be a really good thing for him to like learn to love. Just
Yeah.
ongoing life skill.
Yeah.
And so he's it's interesting because they're, they go do their thing and I'm like, you guys go, mom's not going.
It's
uh,
there if you want it.
yes, yes. But I think it's awesome that you are teaching it, just whatever sort of fitness opportunities or things, passions that people can get behind. It's so needed. Like we're just the world is stuck on screens. Kids don't know how to move. Like you just look at all the chronic illness and
Yeah.
it's really sad. So whether it's running or something else, like
Movement
it's needed
movement is the
100%.
goal.
Yeah. And if you can find something that really gets your juices flowing, something that you're passionate about and pushes you and drives you,
Yeah.
like that's awesome. I love that. I've gotten into biking myself.
Love
So
it.
I've got really bad joints. And I was like, okay, what's the easiest thing on my joints? Cycling. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So
Cycling is a great pastime too.
yeah,
Good
yeah. So
exercise.
that's been my option. So how do you bring in new clients?
How do I bring in new clients? Multiple ways.
Mhm.
I think when I started the business, it was really all people I knew. So looking in my inner circle, right?
Mhm.
Family, friends, colleagues. And then kind of how do I expand beyond that? So once I had some clients, it was a lot of referrals. And I think that is probably the biggest way that I get new people
Mhm.
that I can track is referrals.
Yeah.
And I think a reminder that even people you worked with in the past. So usually I'm working with people for sometimes a short period of time, like a training cycle might be 3, 4, 5 months for a marathon. And then
Mhm.
after that, usually runners take some time off. But I have a lot of repeat clients, which is wonderful. And
Mhm.
then remembering to go back to people I've worked with even a couple of years ago and just say, hey, like, do you have anything on the schedule? Do you have a race that you might want to run or refer, other people? So I
Mhm.
think referrals is a big one. The other piece would be, I think, a presence in groups where your ideal clients are. So
Yeah.
for me, that looks like Facebook groups, some for runners specifically, but also like groups of physician entrepreneurs. Like a lot of my clients are physicians because that is the company that I keep. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm
Makes
in
sense.
those groups, but thinking, asking yourself where does my ideal client hang out? What groups are they in? And trying to pop in there. And if you see someone asking a question that you could, can you answer that? And then I'm not saying you sell yourself that way, but if someone maybe sees your answer and then they like click on your Facebook profile, like, oh, I didn't know that, Michelle is a run coach, whatever it is. So I've
Yeah.
gotten a couple of clients that way. Of course, it takes a little bit more time, right? It's a lot easier if you know
Right.
someone or you're being referred by someone who's already worked with you and can vouch that you're a human being who is not going to be, I don't know, lying, cheating, and doing horrible things.
Right. 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 You definitely have to build that know, like, and trust
Yeah.
factor. So, do you have like your own social media presence? Do you have a Facebook group? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I think, and then going back to your last question, maybe the third piece would be
Okay.
sort of like a home base. So I have a YouTube channel that is like kind of my form where I put all my videos and
Mhm.
kind of keep a home base. It started when I started the business, it was a blog that's still on my website. And I still
Mhm.
sometimes like update that and write a piece if I feel like I want to. But the YouTube channel is where I house the videos, and I'm working toward a podcast for early 2024. So that's going to be sort of home base and a way to kind of get my message out there. But I don't have a Facebook group of my own people.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, YouTube can be another alternative to a group necessary. If groups are not your thing, but I do love Facebook groups where you can go live and talk one to many to your people
Yeah.
and build that relationship. So it can be done on YouTube. I think there's some additional challenges doing it there, but um, live video, I highly suggest. And even if you did like a 1 hour or a half hour once a week, where it's a Q&A session where you're popping on for your people and you're answering questions and you're just talking and you're going back and forth with their comments, talking to them where they can really start to feel like they know you. That is a
Hmm.
really powerful tool to get them to move along to the next step. So definitely think that would be a good move. So beyond the podcast coming next year, which is awesome, like what are your next phases for growth? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so the business started with mostly one-on-one coaching, and I have dabbled in having some groups. So I have a beginner program for people who are really coming from the couch or haven't run for a while. That's called Ready, Set, Run. So I'm going to have another group early in the year. I think it's a good time, like with the new year. It's just the time that people want to get moving. So we're going to do that. I've had a half marathon group in the past, which was really fun. And then the other thing is that I have a physician friend who is a meditation teacher, and we had a retreat for the first time in September, and we're going to do it again in February. And I think the retreat is going to be sort of a different arm of the business, but it was wonderful, and we want to do it again and again. So I think it's going to be at least a yearly thing, but we are kind of trying to expand our options with the retreat. So that's coming too in February. So lots of things on the on the calendar.
Yeah, that's great. So okay, you've got a lead magnet, I assume, and then a nurture process once people opt in to move them through to a sales call, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So yeah, having all of that obviously is going to be your foundation, and then you can play with different traffic strategies. So YouTube is a traffic strategy. Your podcast will be a traffic strategy. Engaging in groups is another traffic strategy. So getting them into your process, getting them into your world, into your funnel, and then really nurturing them. I love nurturing them in email, but let's be real, a lot of people don't open email.
Yeah.
Right. Or peruse titles and bullet points and move on. Right. So that's one of the reasons that I really like a group, is inviting people on the thank you page for the freebie. Invite them to a Facebook group, a community where you do live training once a week, or you do like some reason to join. Right.
Yeah.
And then get them in there, and then they can really see you, hear you, feel your personality, your authenticness. And our hottest leads come from our Facebook
group,
especially right off of a live training. And they're like, because you
Yeah.
just throw in the call to action, hey, if you think you might need some help with this, that's awesome. This is exactly what I do and how I help people. Just comment info. We'll chat and see how I can help you out. So really just casual conversational. They say info, and then you message them, you set up a time to chat and see if, where to go from there. But it really, like, that's where they fall in love with you. I feel like they get introduced to you on the different platforms, but they fall in love with you in your group. So
I also love the idea too for people who have worked with me too. Like they would be great to be in the group. Like yes, exactly. So it's not that I just know that obviously the way lives are so busy, you're not top of mind, and like.
Right.
It's just a reminder. Like I'm hoping that the weekly email is like, oh yeah, Michelle's still doing her thing. But
yeah, and it even just gives you a reason, another like an email to send, because you can email your list and say, hey, tonight I'm going live teaching exclusively in my Facebook group. Here's a link to join my group. Make sure you're in.
Love it.
Right. And so it's another reason an easy email that you can write.
Yeah.
Get it out there. Another way to drive them in. So yeah, I think that would be a great asset for you. It's an asset, and it's the sooner you start building it, the better, right? But I think that would be a great help for you as you grow and scale. I love group programs. I love courses. If you get into that, maybe towards the end of next year, creating a standalone DIY course. But we've helped a lot of people move from one-on-one coaching primarily to creating more group programs and creating just more scalability and time freedom. So I love that you're going to be doing more of that in the new year as well. So that's awesome. So if people are really interested and they know they need us to find something to get off the couch for, right? They know it's good for them, but they know they're going to need some help on how to do this. How do they connect with you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, I think best place would be my website, which is mindful- there's a hyphen in there, marathon.com. There is a free it's sort of like my starter training plan for people coming from the couch. So it is a walk plan. You don't even have to run, and you can download that and even do it for January. So that's on the website, and I think it will be probably here below.
Yes.
You can download that.
Yeah, I'll put both of those links, the link to the website and the direct link to the freebie gift. We appreciate that. In the description here of the video, above or below, depending on where you're watching this. Go check it out. Running is very, very good for you. We all need a little more activity these days. So go check out Michelle. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.